Welcome to In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am passionate about helping women live authentically by listening to their inner voice. Get ready to be inspired by women of all walks of life that have set aside their should-bes and not good enoughs and are standing in their true voice, the voice of wisdom that each and every one of us has inside. Hey, this is Kelly, and you are listening to In Her Voice, episode 46. And I am so excited because I'm doing something a little bit different this month. And I am celebrating in collaboration with a local nonprofit here in Syracuse called Ophelia's Place, Love Your Body Month. So apparently there's a day in October that is Love Your Body Day, and Ophelia's Place decided to make it Love Your Body Month. And you guys know how important I feel self-care is, how important owning our worthiness is. And I thought, what better way to celebrate that than to dive into collaboration with Ophelia's Place and their sister organization, Circles of Change, and really bring home this message that self-love is what we need more than anything. So today I'm interviewing Holli Zering, who is the daughter of the mother-daughter duo who founded Ophelia's Place and Circles of Change. They're going to talk to you about all that it is. And it's interesting because Mary Ellen is not going to be joining us on the interview because we did an interview with everyone and we had major tech problems and we lost the whole thing. And then we were going to re-record it and Mary Ellen was on a silent retreat and so she couldn't talk. So it's been really interesting, and I feel like because it's been challenging to get this interview done, it's going to make it that much more special, and this month that much more special. So I really invite you to dive into this theme with me this month. I'm going to have women from all walks of life who are really going to hone in on this topic of self-love. And I really think that you're going to love it. So let's kick off Love Your Body Month this month in October with Holli Zering from Ophelia's Place and Circles of Change. Holli, welcome to In Her Voice. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this month, and so thanks for bringing us on.
Yeah, I'm super excited, and I'm sad that your mom, Mary Ellen, could not be on with us. This is our, I think, third or fourth attempt at recording this interview, so you guys know it's going to be really amazing. And Mary Ellen got invited to do a retreat at the Omega Institute, and she didn't realize it was a silent retreat. So she's there and she can't talk. So she's sending her love.
Yes, definitely.
But I thought that we would start off with you just explaining to my listeners what Ophelia's Place is, what Circles of Change is, and how that came about in your life.
So Ophelia's Place is a nonprofit whose mission is to redefine beauty in individuals, families, and communities impacted by eating disorders, disordered eating, and body dissatisfaction. And Circles of Change is an empowerment movement from that. And the way we explain it is Ophelia's Place is what we do in the community, and Circles of Change is what you can do to really empower people to start to change this culture that we live in. And through the work of Ophelia's Place, we've been doing this work for about 15 years, and we realized there's a lot of work to do, and we need everyone on board to do that, which is how Circles of Change came about. Mm-hmm. And Ophelia's Place came to be a nonprofit because when I was 16, I was diagnosed with an eating disorder. And it was pretty severe at the moment I was diagnosed. And so I had to get in treatment as quickly as possible. And so I think it was only 3 to 4 months later, I ended up getting into treatment. And I was in high school. I was a senior at the time and didn't really even know what an eating disorder was. It was just a whirlwind. And so, anyways, I get in treatment and I kind of start to work through a lot of the basics like education on food and diet, and you do therapy while you're there. And they work a lot on family dynamics and things like that. And so I talked with my counselor there about the way I was raised, and I'm from an Italian family, and so food is everything in our culture. And so there was a lot of mixed messaging around that. And so my mom had a lot of food rules, like if you eat Girl Scout cookies, those calories don't count because it's charity food, or it was just, there was a lot to it. And so as I'm explaining this to my therapist, thinking it was totally normal and how every family communicates about food, she said, "Oh my gosh, no." And so we kind of started to unpack those things. And so that night I had a phone call with my mom and I told her, "Hey mom, I talked about you in counseling today." And she said, "Oh yeah, what about?" Thinking, feeling very proud. And I said, "Oh, about all your food rules." And she said, "I don't have any food rules. Like, what are you talking about?" And we talked through that. And she calls that her aha moment where she realized, oh my goodness, I'm not to blame for Holly's eating disorder, but I've certainly played a part in how she views her body and food. And so, I was there for about 4 months total and did some amazing work. And that really built a base for my recovery. Although when I went back home, so I'm from upstate New York, Syracuse, I went to Arizona for treatment. And when I got back, I got sick almost immediately again. And my parents were terrified and said, "What can we do to help you? What is going on? Why are you sick again?" And I said, I'm really lacking support. I need a place to go, to work out some of my recovery skills and to continue practicing it, and not in an environment where I feel like I'm being watched all the time, because I felt like everybody was staring at me and noticing either my weight or my food behaviors or things like that. I just want to be and practice. And so when I told my mom that, she said, "Well, what does that look like?" I kind of envisioned it and she went with it. And that's how Ophelia's Place came to be.
I love that so much because I feel that this is something that you guys have built together as mother-daughter, and that the building itself of Ophelia's Place has been part of both of your recovery and healing.
Absolutely. And I think what was so important about this process for me was I had suffered from depression most of my life. I've lived with that, and the eating disorder when I was diagnosed with something new. And both of those things felt very isolating to me, and I felt very alone in them. And I felt like a huge burden to my family. And there was just a lot of shame in that. And so when my mom kind of joined me saying, "Oh, wow, like I have things I can work on too." And it was, my family didn't point to me and say, "You're the problem. You need to go to Arizona, get fixed, and come back so that you're like ready to go." They joined me in the solution. And that was one of the best gifts I've ever received.
I love that. I love it so much. And I want to just touch on something that you said about circles of change in Ophelia's Place, and that is that this goes beyond eating disorders and also into this realm of body dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
And I think that while most women, they know what an eating disorder is, but might not have one, all of us can understand body dissatisfaction. We've all been there. And I want you to explain to us how you guys are going about redefining beauty. What does that mean?
I think even from the eating disorder perspective in conversation, if someone would have asked me the day before if I was diagnosed if I had an eating disorder, I would have said no. And then when I was diagnosed and they explained to me what I was doing that was eating disordered, it completely opened my eyes. Oh my gosh, I had no idea that's even what I was doing. And that might sound really stupid of me, but I honestly had no idea. And I was in so much pain, and that was a way for me to communicate my pain. And so that's all I really thought about it. But with the body dissatisfaction, we live in a world that has the most unrealistic beauty expectations. And so I just remember when I had first gotten out of treatment and trying to adjust to my new life. And I remember talking negatively about myself all the time because I was so afraid just to show up as who I am. And I think that's a very vulnerable place to be. And so I needed to constantly make excuses for how I looked, or I wanted everyone to know that I knew my flaws, so I didn't need to hear it from them. And we'll just get that out in the open and move on. Well, that was such a toxic way to live. And when people were looking up to me or looking at me like, oh, you're beautiful, or you're kind, or you're this, or you're that, and I was putting myself down, they started to doubt themselves and, well, we think you're beautiful. So if you're saying this about yourself, what are you thinking about me? And it just was very toxic very quickly. And so even now, as I work with my daughter and try to parent differently, Anna and I talk a lot about redefining beauty and what that means. And she wears these glasses that she doesn't need. So they're these fake glasses, and she was getting made fun of at school. So she stopped wearing them. And when I noticed that, I said, Anna, why did you stop wearing glasses? And she said, well, I was getting made fun of. And I said, but do you like to wear them, or were you just kind of over that? And she goes, no, I like it. And I said, well, I think you should keep wearing that, because what happens if they start making fun of your hair or your clothes, or how much are you going to change to fit in with your school? And then how much are you going to give to that, instead of just saying, nope, this is who I am, because the world is always going to demand more from you. And it's really important that you set those boundaries. And so she has kind of really grabbed hold of that. And so I think that's what, in the bigger scheme of life, like, we get to decide what we like, how we want to be, and everybody else just has to deal with it.
Yeah. And I think too, there's this piece of like that we're conditioned to see beauty in a certain way, like if you're thin enough, or if your hair is the right color, or if your eyes look a certain way, whatever the thing is, like we've been conditioned for most of our lives, especially as women, to see beauty in a very narrow lens.
And it's so interesting. I did this class with middle schoolers, and we talked about what the ideal woman would look like. And everybody had different answers. Some people wanted short hair. Some people wanted long hair. Some people liked different color hair, like blue or purple, and other people liked blonde. And so I said, how are we ever supposed to fit the beauty ideal when we don't even know what it is? It's different for everyone. Everyone has a different style. Everyone has a different taste. And I thought, I don't even know if they were impacted that day, but I was really impacted that day, because I saw there's so much diversity even in what we like to look at. So it's it was so interesting. And I think the standards are so high, and there's Photoshop, and it's impossible, but we also take out a lot of our trauma on our bodies, and we assume that's our go-to. At least that's my go-to. If I look different or something, this wouldn't have happened in my life, or I'd be more successful, when that's such a lie.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never really even thought of that, but I think that there's so much truth there. And again, that comes to a place of like not being willing to accept. So not being willing to accept the things that have happened to us, not being willing to accept fully who we are. Why do you think that that is so difficult for us?
I think comparison is one of those things where it destroys any joy that we have. And when we look at someone else and idolize their circumstances or their life, one, we're taking away from the joys that we can be experiencing, but then just the comparison game and all of that, I don't know. I think it's so hard to show up as who we are. I think it's the most vulnerable thing we can do without making excuses and because if we show up and we're fully owning who we are and somebody tears us down, like that's even harder. But if we're throwing a facade out there and someone tears it down, it's like, oh, well, that's not really even who I am. So who cares? Like, yeah.
And I think at the same turn, it's only through that vulnerability that we experience fully loving who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Because until we put that risk out, until we take that risk to do that, we're not fully embracing who we are. And until we fully embrace who we are, that is the only way that we will know true self-love. And that's a practice, right? I mean, that's something I know that I do every day, over and over and over again. And it's not about perfection. It's about practicing. So
Absolutely.
I'm really curious for you, as someone who has recovered from an eating disorder, who's serving people in this community, whose mission it is to start getting women to speak a different language literally about themselves. What are your practices? What are your daily practices to really make sure that you're taking that risk to show up as you?
The first thing I did way back when was I stopped talking negatively about my body. And it was one of those things for me. It was almost like a light switch. And anytime I'd go to say something, I stopped it. And it was very difficult in the beginning. And now I never think about, it's not that I don't think those thoughts, I don't vocalize them in groups. I work through them in people that are in my closer circle because they know my heart, and my heart is to be fully owning who I am. And so they can help me work to those places. But that was one thing that was crucial, and I think is so, so, so important. I think that's always the first step. But
so before, I want to interrupt you here, because before you get to the next thing, I think it's important to point out that you still think those thoughts sometimes.
Yes.
And I think that the distinction that's so important to recognize is that just because you have a thought in your head, it doesn't mean that that is true, and doesn't mean that you have to give that power. And that's what I hear you saying that you do. Like, yeah, you have those thoughts sometimes. They run through your head, but you don't even allow yourself to shine light on those as being valid anymore.
Right. Absolutely.
I love that.
And now something I really like that I do practice is if I do find myself in this cycle of picking apart pieces of my body, I always say to myself, what would it take me to change that and to get it to a place that I see in a magazine? Would that make me a better person? And am I willing to make that sacrifice? And it's always like, no. I mean, for me, because the eating disorder is so severe and it really is a progressive disease. So when you're in recovery and if you have a slip up, typically you go right back to the severity of it. And so for me, it's like, is it worth losing my life over this? Is it worth my family losing me, my friends? Is it worth it? And will it make me better? And it's like, my answer is always no. So,
yeah, that's really powerful. And when you put it like that, I think that it really gives us all pause. I mean, if we were really looking at the way we love ourselves as a life or death situation, how would we change? How would we change our actions? How would we change the way we talk about ourselves? And really, it is life or death. Maybe not literal, but like, are we truly living if we're beating ourselves up all of the time?
And I think, it really can be life or death, because I think about, my mom and growing up with her, and I saw her as the most powerful woman I ever knew. I mean, she was a single mom for a little while, and she was working jobs and kept her family together. And she was still somehow always at school functions and the PTO and all these pieces. And I just looked at her like she was literally Superwoman. And there wasn't anyone better in my eyes. And yet she always talked so negatively about herself. And so I thought, well, who cares what you can do in life as long as you look good? And it was all about those 10 pounds or 15 pounds, no matter what weight she was. She always wanted to lose that. And, you know, how did her jeans look? And she needed to lose weight to get into that dress for that event. And that's what I was consumed with from a very young age. And so to me, it's just absorbing those messages of who cares what you contribute to this world? You just got to look a certain way. And so I think that's such a dangerous message, and it kept me small for a really long time. And even having these conversations, I always feel so horrible because it's not about blame at all. It's just about a learning process and really understanding like knowledge is neutral, and our family took that knowledge to change it. And grow from that experience and understand the significance of it. Because I think we downplay the significance of our lack of self-love, meaning, you know, people just don't think it's a big deal. There's bigger fish to fry, so to speak. And so I think that's one of the biggest fish to fry and something that we do really need to get a handle on.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And that is such a big part of my passion, is just to help women to understand, you know what, if you never lose another pound, if you never, you know, dye your hair again, if you never get the promotion or have the paycheck or whatever it is, you are still worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And when we tap into that, that is going to trump all of the things that we were brought up with, because we all had that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I love that it's not about blaming. It's not
Mm-hmm.
about saying, well, my mom said this to me. I mean, I'm sure that every single one of us has a story just like that, but it's about now as adults, how can we change a conversation? Because now it's our turn. It's our responsibility. You have a little girl. I have boys, and I still feel, even with boys, I want them to understand how important it is for them to love themselves and for them to see women not as, you know, a certain beauty standard, but that they're beautiful from the inside out.
Yeah. And I think the biggest combat I get to this is the health conversation. And I think it's so interesting because I think they're two totally different conversations. And I think people assume weight loss equals health. And so they get those tied up together really closely. And I think they're different conversations and different avenues. But I think in order to be healthy, you have to start with the worthiness piece. Like, you are worthy of seeking the health out. You are worthy of feeling good in your skin and in your body, physically and mentally and emotionally, and all those pieces. And so I think that's the first step.
Totally. And what message are we sending to ourselves if we're saying, I'm not good enough, so I need to punish myself in order then to be good enough, right? Like that is not going to tap into that worthiness at all. You know, what desire is that going to build in us to take care of our bodies that are precious? Like, our bodies are precious, and they do so much for us, even beyond physical things. You know, they alert us to scary situations. They're like a conduit to our inner voice, literally. And, you know, if we're not tapping into that worthiness piece, we're missing out on so much joy and so much love and so much more that we can pour out into each other. And I love that that's what you guys are doing with Circles of Change. And can you just talk a little bit about some of the things that you guys are instituting with Circles of Change as an outreach program?
Yeah, I mean, Circles of Change is definitely about doing this together. When we can start to own who we are and put aside our insecurities, it's really changed my relationships for the better. Like, my friends and my husband or my children don't have to constantly convince me I'm not these things that I so long thought I was, but they can help me move forward in life and contribute to the world. So now they get to tell me more empowering things and encourage me in what I'm doing instead of wasting all their energy telling me, I'm not all these other things that the world and myself has told me for so long. So with circles of change, it's really about this ripple effect of watching if one person starts to own this conversation and change it, how they can influence the people in their life and in their world. And so, we have yoga teachers who have adopted this, and now they can spread this message to the people that they're teaching. Anna, my 9-year-old, who just is so amazing to me, comes home from school and she'll tell me things about mixed messaging that's going on there. And we get to change the conversation then in her school, all because she gets to pick up on what's going on there and change the dialogue about food and about bodies and about wellness and movement within her community. And it's so amazing that she's 9 and she's doing these things. And a friend of hers came up to her and said, Anna, do you think my ears are too small? And Anna said, well, I think the question is, do you think they're too small? And she goes, no, but I'm really getting teased and bullied about this. And Anna said, I think they're beautiful. And I think it's all about what you think. And if you like them, like, move ahead with that. And she was like, you're right. I get to love my ears, even if the people in my school don't love them. Just that type of messaging. And who knows how those conversations transform in other people's areas. But yeah, so circles is really about owning this message and then bringing it to the people that you are surrounded with. And then they get to bring it to their circles and so on and so forth.
I love that. So if you could give us a challenge, like doing this one thing is going to help start to connect our circles in a better way and really start to support women and men in loving themselves fully, what could we do?
Oh, one thing. Unfortunately, I think it has to start with us. I think there's no way that I could have changed this conversation in any area of my community without doing the work myself first. And that's really scary and it's hard and it's so challenging because you don't even really know what to start. And I think one of the most difficult pieces of this is we feel like we're supposed to feel this way. Like if we hate our bodies, we feel like we're right on point with the world, and that's where it should be. And so
that's
I
what's
think
normal, right?
Right.
Like that's what we've been taught is normal, that we should always be on a diet, that we should always be worried that we're too fat, that we should always be, striving to be smaller. I think you're totally right.
And so I think the first thing, I guess, would be you have a choice. It's not always an easy choice, but it's a choice. And there's a lot of pieces where, we have a pledge on our website and it talks about a few simple things you can do, like redefining success. Is success the amount of followers you have on Instagram, or is success contributing to your household or your community? Is success resting for a day, or is it having every minute challenge? Like you get to own those pieces and change those pieces. And another thing for us is stop the diet talk. And so stop talking about the food and the calories. And when I go out to eat with people who don't know me that well and they talk like that, I get so nervous because I'm not used to hearing it. Or if people are with me, they get nervous for me. Like, is Holly going to lecture them right now? What's going to happen? Oh my gosh. Because I want to enjoy my food when I sit down. I want to have a deep conversation about like your dreams and your hurts and how you're suffering and how I can support you. And I want to know how I can like be in it with you. I don't want to talk about food. I don't want to talk about calories and good food, bad food. That's not where I'm at. And it's not a helpful conversation as much as we think it can be. And so we have a pledge on our website that can help those pieces. We have a manifesto that really defines the work we do and what we believe in. And I think sometimes I can alienate people because I talk about it from a very idealistic standpoint. But there's going to be mess ups and it's going to be hard and messy, and that's okay. That just means you're trying, and that's all we really want.
Yeah, it's bringing the awareness to that.
Yeah.
So you guys know me, I'm a recovering perfectionist,
Mm-hmm.
and we're never going to be perfect. The perfect column will always have zeros. There will be nothing there. And then there's so many things that we can put in the good column. So many ways to love ourselves, so many ways to work on this. And I'm so just thrilled that you guys are doing this work in the world, that you are idealistic, because it's people like you who are leading us, who are showing us the way. And we need that. We need that in our lives. So I want you all to take a moment, go over to Instagram and follow Circles of Change on Instagram. It is absolutely my favorite feed that I have on my Instagram, and I have a lot. But if you really want to start to change what you're inputting into your eyes and into your mind, really get sort of some clarity on your social media. Are you following people who are sending the wrong messages? And what kind of sort of input do you want? How do you want to feed that mind of yours so you really can be clear and aware of what your thoughts and intentional with what you're saying about yourself and how you're treating yourself? So then we can start to spread that conversation out among our girlfriends and our daughters and our mothers and sisters. So it's so beautiful, Holli, and I'm so glad to know both of you. It's really an honor. I have a question for you that I wanted to ask you. I asked it in our last interview, which is in the ether, never to be found, but I love your answer. And Circles of Change in Ophelia's Place is about redefining beauty. And I would love to know, what is beautiful about you? What do you think is beautiful about you?
I think one of my favorite parts about myself is how much I've survived. I think for the longest time, I really diminished my life experiences, and I felt a lot of pain and a lot of suffering through mental illness and depression. And I for the longest time, I didn't feel valid in any of those areas. And now that I've worked so hard with those pieces and through those pieces, I'm really proud about that. And so I think just my soul at this point and how much I'm able to sit with people in their pain and how much I feel like I've been able to heal through mine is my favorite part.
I love that. It is beautiful. I will vouch for everyone that I feel your beauty, and your mother's as well. I know that she couldn't be here, but I'm sure she'll listen. And Mary Ellen, you are beautiful, and I'm so thankful for you. And I just want to honor and acknowledge both of you guys in what you're doing, but especially you, Holli, here this moment with me. I feel your passion, and that excites me. Like, I get so fired up when I'm with people who have that fire inside of them and that passion to change the world and to make a difference. And I just want to honor that right now because I really feel it and I see you doing that. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I would love for you to let my listeners know how they can connect with you guys and what more they can do to start their own circle and to really get into this idea of circles of change.
So you can, like you said, follow us on Instagram or check out our website. We have a lot of ways that people can contribute. And so there's two kind of avenues where you can buy our products, which we have t-shirts and mugs and things. We wanted it to be kind of just these countercultural messages. So if you wore it outside, someone would be like, what are you even wearing? I need to know about this because this isn't a message I'm used to seeing. And so it helps to raise awareness in communities, but then it also helps fund Ophelia's Place and the work we're doing with the nonprofit.
Yeah, and I love those. I have several of those
Thank
products,
you.
and they're fantastic. And I believe that you guys keep your eyes open this month because I'm going to be doing a flash giveaway of one of those Circles of Change shirts. So definitely keep an eye out for that.
I know I had an impromptu lunch with my sister-in-law today, and she was wearing one of our shirts, and I said, oh my gosh, we didn't even plan today, and you're wearing one of my shirts. I love this. But then we have a monthly donor program, which we really do believe, like, the least you can give impacts us so much, because if we all come together with $5 or $10 a month, like literally the price of a cup of coffee, we can continue this work and really grow. And then the other piece is, by changing these conversations in your circles and in your communities, you're supporting us in the work we do, because it's lessening the load. Like, we get to be in it together, and we get to share I don't want to say burden, but share the weight of it and the importance of it. And we know that there's other people doing this work. And we have a lot of resources where you can read, because this topic's very overwhelming and there's a lot of pieces to it. And so we have resources that you can read and learn and grow. And Circles of Change Instagram is one of those, where Haley does our marketing, and she finds the best quotes that I'm even encouraged by.
Yeah, I love it. It's so fantastic. So this is great. You guys go out, get yourself a Circles of Change shirt or a mug or a water bottle, or get a sticker to put on the back of your car. Oh, it's all good. You can't go wrong with any of it. So Holli, I want to wrap up our time together with a question that I ask all of my guests. And that is, what is your inner voice saying to you in your life right now?
My inner voice is telling me, I think it's continuing to show up in a way and impact change. So there are times in my life where bigger and better and more just is not what my inner voice is telling me. It's telling me less and rest and things like that. But right now, we've been working in Arizona for about 2 years trying to get the nonprofit up and running here. And we're at a point where we're starting to gain some traction. And so I'm rolling with it and I'm going with it. But that's not my typical answer. So it feels weird even coming out of my mouth. So it is just continuing to ride this wave and just understanding the need and feeling excited about the impact we can have on this community. And so just rolling with that.
I love it. It's kind of go big or go home. Sometimes that's what your inner voice says. And when it says that, you better do it.
Well, we held a conference last spring, and one of the speakers does similar work, Dr. Melody Moore, and she has a nonprofit too. And so she said, when she had talked about why does she do this work, she said, "How dare I not?" And those words haunt me still, because anytime I'm tired and I want to give up and I feel like no one's listening, I hear her say, like, "How dare you not, with your story and where you've been and the suffering you see? Like, you can't keep it to yourself. You got to share the message."
I love it. I love it. And Melody Moore is going to be on In Her Voice this month also.
Oh, she is?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
good.
you guys will get to hear her. She's wonderful. And I agree. How dare we not? Let's all join together and really make a difference in this world, because we matter. Because everyone matters. So Holli, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for all that you're doing. And next time you're in Syracuse, we definitely need to get a cup of coffee.
For sure.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks, Kelly.
Oh man, I just get so fired up when I have conversations like this with people who are passionate about spreading this message of worthiness. And this is deep worthiness, you guys. This is worthiness from the inside out. And I really hope that you will take on Holli's challenge of changing your language, changing the way you talk to yourself. Start with that. Even if it's just about becoming aware of that. That awareness is so key, because oftentimes we don't even realize how much message we're sending to our body and our mind and our heart that we're not good enough, or that something is wrong with us. So really start to wake up to what you are saying to yourself and start to change that conversation with yourself, and then start to change the conversation with the people around you. And, Holli mentioned something about sometimes she feels nervous when she's around people who who don't speak that language because she's afraid that she's just not going to be able to hold it in. And I say, go for it, you guys. Don't hold it in. Let people know that you're serious about loving who you are and that you're serious about helping them love who they are, because it really does matter. So I'm excited to share with you that this whole month, in celebration of Love Your Body Month and in collaboration with Circles of Change, I am creating my own circle. And I'm happy to say that 50% of my Patreon donations for this month will be going to support Circles of Change. And I would love for you to join together with me in this circle of self-love, of taking care of ourselves, of changing this conversation that women have around their bodies and around who they need to be and how they need to show up. So if this is something that you would like to join with me in doing, and in doing so also support In Her Voice, which I so thank you for, all you have to do is go to kellycovert.com/together and join with me together with a donation as small as $1 or anything from there to really show your support for Circles of Change as well as for In Her Voice. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a beloved and devoted member of my tribe, of my circle. I appreciate you. And I want you to know that you matter. You know, I know you matter, but I want you to know it, and I want you to feel it deep inside of you, deep inside of you. Do you know why? Because you are worthy.